Reporting in from Sector 11, I'm Devin.
I'm Danny.
And you're listening to the Goddardam Gazette. So I am here with Danny Argote, who you may have heard of if you were on the SS Neverender 2, if you picked up a shirt from Drum Set Confessional recently, or maybe if you were at San Diego Comic-Con and picked up one of their prints there. And one last thing. Oh yeah, our logo was designed by Danny here.
Thank you, man. I've been lucky enough to be able to do some artwork for Coheed fan art for the fan base. Officially hired recently for the San Diego Comic-Con, which was amazing. Well worth the work put into it, and all the fan base. Thank you so much. You guys have been absolutely integral in kind of spreading the name out there, kind of getting the information out there for me to have the chance and the opportunity to do something for you guys officially. And I'm grateful for all the feedback, for all the fan art I've been able to do for you guys over the years. And yeah, it's been a wild ride, and it's definitely getting better.
Well, we'll be talking about those individual pieces as we move forward. But the first question is, for every guest, what are your top 3 Coheed songs, and what is your favorite Coheed album?
All right. I think it's hard to do top 3 because for me, I differentiate music categories basically, or song categories, depending on emotion. So like, to me, you could say, what are the top 3, like, pump you up, let's go have a good time, or pump you up, let's start a war, or I need to sit in a dark room for a little while, stuff like that. But in terms of probably the peak of each individual emotion, for me, Radio Bye Bye, I think, is one of the most fun Coheed songs out there. I love the change up. I love the fun of it. I love how, like, it's takes itself seriously and then doesn't, and then just kind of flows back and forth. It's a real good kind of smack you out of whatever headspace you're in song. It's hard not to bop your head to it and not get into a better mood. On a personal level, probably the heaviest song for me is Domino. I have a little brother who's an addict, so knowing what the insinuations are of that song and the heaviness of that song, like, when I hear it, it's like, man, I gotta be ready to go through that roller coaster. I need to hit the next song. But it's one of my favorites. It's just incredibly powerful. It's just a powerful song. And then probably just like my first song that got me, man, like in Keeping Secrets, that seeing it live is incredible. And I have had the very, very wonderful opportunity of once hearing it from side stage and hearing the crowd chant back to the band. And it's one thing to, like, put it out to the band, and it's beautiful and it's amazing, but it's another thing to, like, hear it coming back and you're like, oh, that's why they're never going to stop playing this. This feels so incredible. Favorite album, huh? That's a tough one, man. Like, honestly, I think the Afterman records really did a lot, because it was sort of a weird, refreshing change of pace. And I always felt like the first 3 albums were such, in a weird way, kind of their own cohesive one album. And I think Afterman was sort of a big dividing line, and not necessarily in the fan base, even though I know some people weren't a big fan of it, but I just felt it was a huge maturing of their sound, and a big stretch of their ability to kind of blend genres together. And yeah, it's probably the most palatable album to introduce somebody to also. So it's hard not to pick that one. That one's really amazing. But the new Vaxxus albums have been phenomenal as well, almost in the same regard. I'm actually just afraid to judge those just yet until they're all put together. I want to see it as a whole picture. I really think that's going to change my perspective significantly.
I agree. I really like the direction that Vaxxus is going, and I cannot wait to see how this arc concludes. But how did you get into Coheed initially?
So the first time I ever saw Coheed, they actually opened for the Used back in 2000, 2001. And yeah, I had no idea who they were. I really dug the energy, the sound. It was unique. It was different. It was eclectic. And I was into them for a little bit. I didn't go out of my way to buy an album at that time. I I think I just kind of phased off, and not for lack of their ability, but more so just lack of my ability to keep attention. But I do remember the day I bought their CD. I bought No World for Tomorrow and Three Cheers for Sweet Revenge from MCR. And I was there to buy the MCR album, and I barely played that one. I mean, I ended up playing it plenty later on, but that No World for Tomorrow album really was like, wow, holy cow. And then I literally ran back, I think it was 2 days later, and bought Second Stage and In Keeping Secrets, and then probably bought about 3 extra copies of each one once I burned them through my CD player, because I lived in Miami and those things would literally melt in there.
Oh man, I couldn't imagine opening up my car door and seeing a melted Coheed CD. I think I would lose my mind. Well, speaking of supporting the band, you have done tons of artwork for a plethora of different bands. How did you originally start doing artwork, and how did you transition into doing art for bands?
So about right around when I started tattooing, I was already in this headspace of I've always wanted my art to somehow end up in the musical realm, whether it be album covers or promotional art or stuff like that. I was just getting into concert posters. My first concert poster was actually a Jimi Hendrix poster from a show in Germany in 1969 by an artist named Stuttgart. And I literally have that tattooed on my arm. It's one of my favorite posters. It's the first one I ever bought, and it got me really into appreciating concert posters and the art of promotional art, and catching your eye, giving you that aesthetic rest to get your attention and get you interested in what it's all about. So I realized, I'm like, well, let me just take a swing at it. Like, I listen to music while I draw all the time, and so I felt it was a sort of natural thank you for keeping me at the table drawing, rather than just kind of goofing off or getting distracted. I would listen to a good song, and I would practice like trying to visualize what the lyrics were telling me, stuff like that. So the very first fan art I ever did was actually for the band Incubus about 15 years ago. And I got it to one of the roadies and gave them a few copies of it. That one I did do a painting of, but it was a giant canvas. So that kind of was not going to happen. So I had it professionally photographed and made a few prints, enough for each of the band members to get, and dropped it off one of the roadies. And that kind of started it up a little bit. I was just kind of in this mode of like, well, this is interesting. Let's see how far this goes. And it went from trying to get it to the band to handing it to the band on stage to getting backstage to getting pulled on stage. And I've been lucky enough to give art to bands like Deftones, Incubus, Foo Fighters, Queens of Stone Age. They were great. Coheed and Cambria, obviously, plenty of times, more so than anyone else now at this point. A bunch of different people. Some comedians as well. I've been lucky enough to give some work to Doug Stanhope, Roy Wood Jr. Actually, I gave him some art last night, which is pretty cool. Chris Porter, Chad Daniels. I've done pieces for George Carlin, Richard Pryor. So just trying to hit those like people that influenced me, that kind of allowed me to sit there and draw and inspire me to come up with ideas and concepts and just kind of keep swinging,
Well, that is an impressive catalog of artwork that you've created. How did you initially start getting into artwork, and later you transitioned into doing tattoos as a part of the Colorado Ink and Art Collective?
So as a kid, I was drawing a lot, to drawing. I think my first memories of actually really getting into it was tracing comic books. Batman, Spider-Man, Venom, Ninja Turtles, Wolverine. Just the typical stuff a young kid was into. And I saw how like cool it was for somebody to see me draw something from a comic book and then go, wow, you did that. You made another variation of it, another version of it. And when I was young, my father, thankfully, and thanks, Pops, appreciate you. When I was 9, he took some of my sketches and put them in an envelope and sent them to DC Comics. And it was just, I think, at the time for him was just kind of seeing like, hey, what do I do here? Because he didn't know how to raise an artist. Usually the stereotypes of that are, oh, man, he's going to live with us forever starving. So he sent those out there, and I actually, a week later, had a letter in the mail with my name on it from DC Comics and it was the executive editor of Batman. And for a 9-year-old kid to get a letter from the guy who draws Batman just makes you blow your mind. You're just like, what? Holy cow. And it was very rudimentary, information. Just like, hey, take art classes, draw from life, don't just trace stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But the effort to just take a moment and, just give an artist a little love, it costs nothing to just give some love to an artist, give them some praise, give them some push, guide them along. Encouragement. That encouragement is so profoundly important. I mean, I'm 40 years old, and I can tell you right now, if I sit here long enough thinking about that letter, I'll start crying. But it's been insanely influential, and it was a really guiding step for me to look into art as a serious thing to make a life out of. And I took that, and I did have, as I grew up, a love for teaching as well. I really dug kind of getting together and drawing stuff together with people. That was always really my favorite way of doing it, or helping somebody learn how to do a certain thing in art. This is how you get that circle just right. This is how you get that shade of color just right. So I ended up being an elementary school art teacher for a couple of years, and I loved that. It was wonderful. Unfortunately, it just wasn't financially viable because art teachers in Florida. But it's a different podcast. So I ended up being a corporate trainer for a restaurant chain and doing a bunch of commissioned artwork here and there for random people, like, nurseries, doing a mural of Winnie the Pooh on their wall, or a restaurant's, logo on the back of their wall and stuff like that. And that slowly kind of translated into, and evolved into doing designs for tattoos. And after a couple of those, I ended up going with them to the shop to speak with the artist, and they looked at my sketchbook and went, hey, you want a tattoo? It was completely serendipitous. I had no desire. I wasn't looking for it. It just happened. Showed them my stuff. They dug it, and we kind of chatted and went over what everything would include and what we would be doing and what it involved in me to commit to and invest in. And 15 years later, I'm got my own tattoo shop. It's amazing. It's a wonderful career. I'm inherently grateful that I get to wake up every day and doodle on people for a living. But I still want to pursue that art and music kind of correlation that's always spoken to me from a real primal level. And so the fan art, that's what became the fan art, giving that artwork to bands as a thank you for, hey man, thanks for letting me jam through this artwork because you gave me a good jam to listen to. And doing it enough times finally got enough people's attention that it started to get me some official hires. And so been tattooing now for 15 years. I've been doing fan art for just about the same amount of time, and officially got hired for the San Diego Comic-Con poster that they did. That was incredible and full circle for me, seeing as how I started tracing comic books. That's what I did. And then my favorite band that I've, now I'm trying to do these posters for bands and stuff like that. And my favorite band tells me they're going to hire me to do one for a Comic-Con convention. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, it couldn't have been a better full circle moment for me. And I'm truly grateful. And it has a lot to do with the fan base, especially whoever's listening right now. Y'all have been incredibly supportive and wonderful. And I can't thank y'all enough, truly.
Well, we were all super excited to see what you put together for San Diego Comic-Con. We actually have one of those prints signed by Claudio to give away for today's episode. So if you are tuning in, please make sure you check out our Twitter or X or whatever it's called right now, that page, for your chance to win one of these insane prints. Danny has also done art for Drum Set Confessional and for us here at Goddardam Gazette. Our logo art is by Danny. We actually just made stickers. So Danny will be sending you some, and to any of our listeners, if you'd like one, please send us a message and we'll get some out to you. But to continue on our line of questioning here, was there a moment where you just knew that art was going to be your career path? And what have been your favorite moments or memories of either creating fan art, doing tattoos, or interacting with other artists?
Honestly, the work, it's like you were mentioning, Drum Set Confessional, phenomenal group. What Josh is doing there is nothing short of just incredible and beautiful work. It's not an easy thing for someone to bring up the stuff that he does to just help some people out and giving perspective to people who are either suffering through addiction or know someone who is, and just that whole message, that whole energy, that spoke to me on a personal level. I have a little brother who unfortunately is dealing with addiction, and seeing somebody set such a wonderful example like Josh has in getting back in the band, making a life for himself, getting back on the good foot, has a family, has a beautiful career, that everything's going back on the right track, and yet he still is willing to dive back into it so that he can help somebody else get out of that same hole. I think it's just one of the most beautiful things ever, and I can't help but support that wholeheartedly. And obviously, you guys, you're putting the word out there for Coheed. I love what you guys do. You guys are amazing. The Coheed fan base. So you heard the list of bands that I give an art to, and these are stadium bands. Okay, huge. I gave my art to Dave Grohl in front of 20,000 people. I have gotten more love from the Coheed fan base and more clients who came in to get a tattoo, a Coheed tattoo, or a band tattoo, or something like that, or just general feedback, sharing my stuff, putting my name out there, helping me network out there and get my name out there and try to get officially hired. There has never been a better fan base in every band that I've drawn something for than the Coheed fan base. So, of course, I had to do something for the podcast, show some love for you guys because y'all are absolutely wonderful. It's phenomenal. The family aspect and community aspect that the Coheed fan base does and has is just it's exemplary. It really is. It's phenomenal.
Was there any other moments or experiences with other bands or artists or tattoo clients that really stuck out to you? I know you tattooed Josh recently, and you actually did them on live streams. So maybe if you want to touch on how tattooing is a little different with an audience watching you and asking questions as you're trying to create art.
Yeah, no pressure tattooing your favorite drummer from your favorite band while a bunch of people look at you and you're trying to answer questions and the rest of the band is walking by and saying hi. And it was nerve-wracking to say the least, but again, like I said, Josh is phenomenal. He could not have been a better client in general. Sat like a rock, great attitude, great conversation. It was awesome. He really dug the design. We really gelled on how it would work out and put it together, and I'm excited to finish it. We got the outline done. That was a moment for me for sure. I mean, like, obviously, getting on stage with Dave Grohl, getting pulled up in front of 20,000 people, wild moment. But getting to sit down and talk with your favorite drummer and do something good and help him reach more people with such an amazing cause and message, infinitely better. Yeah. And then tattooing, man, like, there's kind of two columns that I put my favorite tattoos in. Ones that have been of just amazing technical achievement, where I'm like, man, I nailed it, killed it, got it. Find a mistake, I dare you. That's an amazing thing. And then there's some where you've taken such an emotional weight, and it doesn't matter what you tattooed. You just know that you helped somebody in a way that's like most people couldn't. It's a very unique thing for some people to release pain while they're going through pain, or to memorialize a moment in their life, and you're responsible for carrying that through. You're sort of an event holder for processing grief or an insanely important moment in someone's life. There's one that comes to mind, but it's kind of a long story. So if you're up to hearing it, I'll tell you, and I'll try to keep it concise. But just something like anything that holds that kind of like you could tell you did something there that's far beyond just drawing without an eraser.
I mean, listen, man, we're here to talk and to hear stories, so I'd love to hear your side.
All right, so this young man came in one time. This was almost 10 years ago now. It was actually a while ago. He was a young man. He was grieving the loss of his father, which is heartbreaking. Of course, he's a young kid. That shouldn't be the case for him, unfortunately, at that age. And he was killed by a drunk driver. He was riding his bike. The father was riding his bike, went through an intersection. Guy ran a red and hit him, and unfortunately, he was killed. And he came in and he wanted to get a pocket watch on his forearm on the top of his forearm, which usually most people get stuff on the inside. So it was kind of curious as like why he wanted it on the top, and some flowers, and he wanted the pocket watch to be broken in a certain spot with a certain time. And I talked to him, and I found out he was actually under 18. So legally, I was allowed to tattoo him, but by the shop rules that I was working at, we weren't really allowed to put something in a visible area just yet. It was kind of just like hey man, maybe hold off on putting something in your hand or on your forearm until you're a little more heavily tattooed and you're making more mature decisions ideally. So I asked because he was very, very, I was like, what if we put it on top of your arm or on your back or on your leg or this and that and the other? And he was just adamant about putting it on his arm. And so I was like, and I could tell he was, a little emotionally distraught. So I was like, hey man, let's step outside for a second. So I step outside with him and I go, all right, but what's going on? Can you tell me what the issue is here? And he goes, I buried my father a few days ago and he was killed by a drunk driver. And the night that we buried him, I was really upset and hurt. And I drank. And I wasn't super duper intoxicated, blackout drunk, but I knew I shouldn't be doing anything. And I got in a car to go home, and that was it. And when I got home, I got there safely and I didn't hurt anyone, thankfully. But I woke up the next day feeling like the worst human being on earth because I could have been the same person that killed my father. So he wanted that pocket watch on the top of his forearm so that every time he grabbed the wheel of a car, he'd have to tell his dad that he was okay to drive. And at that moment, I fucking broke down in tears and went, sit down. I got you. And that was it. That one to this day gets me every time. That's one of the most beautiful things I've ever experienced tattooing.
Man, that's a powerful piece. Not only to just hear the story, but to then have to create the piece of artwork and put it on him forever. That's
no pressure.
Right.
No pressure whatsoever. I was honored. I was honored. It was actually absolutely a very pressure heavy situation, a very, energy and emotional level heavy. And I couldn't have been happier with the work afterward and what it did for him. And I walked home depleted, but absolutely gratified with helping somebody out like that and making a positive change. It was so beautiful. We walked out. Before he left, we just hugged it out, man. I'm like, you're my dude now, man. I gave my contact info and I was like, you get a hold of me whenever you need anything, man. I got you. And he hits me up every now and then. He's doing okay. So he's a good dude.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great to hear. And you've continued that style of work, as we were talking about with Drum Set Confessional. Not only did you create that piece for Josh's tattoo, but that is going to be a shirt that will be sold and the proceeds will be going to help addiction recovery and outreach. And this isn't the first design that you've done for Drum Set Confessional. You have made probably one of the coolest shirts I've ever seen, the actual drum for Drum Set Confessional. So how did that whole process of working with DSC come about, and what kind of led to your touch being added to the Drum Set Confessional world?
Well, I saw what Josh was doing. I think they started up almost about a year and a half ago now. Because I did see, or maybe a little less, because I did actually see about it. One of the memories recently, it was like 1 year ago, the Drum Set Confessional design. I'm like, man, it's been that long already. I saw what they were doing and what the mission was, and like I said, I have a little brother who's dealing with addiction, and I couldn't help but be sort of pulled into that, magnetized to what they were trying to do and the positive things they were trying to put out there. It's hard to talk about that stuff. It's hard to put it out there. It's hard to have that conversation. It's not something people want to joyfully click on and be a part of. But it is a call to action in your community to help those less fortunate or those struggling. And seeing what he was doing, and I couldn't help but want to somehow help out. I noticed around that time that my fan art, especially in the Coheed fan base, was definitely getting a little more noticed. People had a couple pictures up of like, hey, I got like 2 or 3 of your prints, 4 of your prints, or whatever. They're on my wall. I'm like, that's amazing. That's awesome. I love it. Thank you all so much. Again, fan base, you guys are so amazing. Thank you. And so I was like, well, maybe this is something where I can send my artwork in for them or do something for them that will allow them to sell that and raise funds for their cause. So I messaged Rob, who runs it with Josh, and had a conversation with him, kind of explained to him who I was and what I was doing and sort of how I was going about my fan art and stuff like that. And I wanted to contribute something and donate to them. If I'm willing to do it for a band I like, why wouldn't I do it for an amazing outreach program from my favorite band? One of the members of my favorite band, it just seemed no brainer, So I did that design for them, the drum head, and it did really well. We even did a t-shirt design where I got to judge with Rob and Josh, pick out a design from some of the members and some of the people following us to contributed into the art there, and that was incredible, super fun. And from that kind of opened up more avenues to speak with more of the band and their management, so I could have the opportunity to present some artwork to them, and that led to the official hire for the San Diego Comic-Con poster, which, like I said, wildly full circle moment for me, from tracing comic books as a kid, falling in love with this band, and then officially my first ever concert poster hire is for my favorite band at San Diego Comic-Con. It just, you couldn't write it, Truly blessed and grateful for it, man. It's amazing. And I love the work I'm doing with DSC. And if you guys haven't checked it out, please look into it. It is powerful. It's powerful, beautiful work they're doing there.
Absolutely. And I just cannot begin to thank you enough for doing our design here for Goddardam Gazette. I know we were going back and forth, and we landed on something that exceeded my expectations tenfold. It's absolutely incredible. You said you started with tracing comic books, and now you've kind of entered the realm of digital art. Do you have a preference over digital and physical? And did that preference change over time?
I kind of had a love-hate relationship with digital versus physical mediums, because as I was around the age where I would go into training, like generally schooling, like college or like trade school stuff, or other kind of means to learn, physical drawing, animation, rendering, and stuff like that was being phased into computer animation. Like, this was the beginning of Photoshop, basically. That's how old I am, guys. So it was tough for me to commit, because I just didn't know where the pendulum was going to swing. So, and I think that just kind of gave me an initial kind of wall against kind of going into computers and digital and all that. But as I started tattooing, I think about 5-7 years into my career, a lot of these iPads were showing up where people were getting to draw all their designs on that. And, it was a lot more efficient than tons of tracing paper and notepads and pencils and erasers and God knows what else, markers, all the above. To be able to have it on something as slim as a notebook and pull up everything and create different sizes and print out all different variations, just mirror the image. Half the time they told me they want to switch it to a different arm, I had to redraw it, mirrored and flipped over. So the convenience and efficiency of it is what kind of brought me and pulled me into digital. I do almost everything now digital. If I do practical artwork, it's just so much more time consuming, and frankly, like, I can only make one, so it kind of limits a lot of time. You're only able to sell one product. Whereas if I do something where I produce it digitally, it could be a logo, it could be something else, and that could be created several times, and that could be a sort of level of passive income, if you will. But switching over to digital has really allowed me also just to make more copies, because I used to just bring an original painting for fan art, and it would suck because half the crowd would be like, "Hey, I really want one of these," and I'm like, "Well, I only painted one, sorry," and it's for the band. So once I was able to actually render a digital image, I was able to bring a bunch of copies with me and give some out to the fans, to the merch booth guys, to the roadies, in hopes to give it to the band. But even if I didn't get it to the band, I still was able to give a bunch of fans some free art, especially because I know, like, tickets are getting so expensive, prices are getting so rough with that, and you got to support them somehow. Like, you want to bring your friends and your kids and stuff like that. It's tough. You may not make it to the merch table. So I try to give out my art at the end of the show when they're walking out, so I'm not competing with the merch table, because I understand that band sales are really heavy. Like, their money is in that, so I don't want to compete with that whatsoever. But I see kiddos, I know parents, if they got 3 kids at the show, man, they're tapped. You know, 3 posters right there makes everybody's day. They might come in and get a tattoo. This might get to the band. Awesome. It's all positive, you know. And yeah, that's all. That so far doing that, just being generous with my art and trying to network and just be present and cool with people has always been a winning formula for me so far. So I mean, I'm not stopping anytime soon.
Good, man. I'm glad to hear it because your art is incredible, and it really. I just from speaking from personal experience on the cruise, I know we did this meetup, and had some DSC people and some podcast people come by, and you were able to just hand out art, and everybody lit up. I mean, we still have the coloring pages ourselves over here, and it's really just great what you do, not only for the artistic side of things, but also for the community side of things. So thank you, Danny. It's really awesome to see you thriving and continue to create in this space.
Oh, no, thank you all. I mean, you guys have to take the art. You know, I could be the guy in a corner with a flyer going, here, you throw this away. But you guys are resonating with it. And so I can't help but continue putting it right back out there with you guys. And it's nothing but love for all you folks. You guys have been nothing but amazing. That exchange on the cruise was such an awesome thing. Like seeing everybody's creative angles and ways of putting things together and all the little knickknacks and stuff they made or artwork they made. Such a creative powerhouse our fan base has. Like, I mean, I'm grateful that I'm being acknowledged in it, but man, we are in a sea of it. Like there is so much creativity in this fan base. There is so much love, like just genuine positive creativity, and it's wonderful. That PMA is important, man. Positive mental attitude. Got to have that PMA. It's so legit with the Coheed fan base. You guys are just incredible. And yeah, it was one of the coolest days ever. I mean, you mentioned one of the more better moments with bands and fans and stuff like that. That day definitely rings in the top 5 for sure. It was so cool. I gave out, I think, that was the most prints I ever made. That one, I think I had about 700 prints made, and then we did about 200 pages of the coloring pages to give out. So that was that was a big one. But yeah, it was so awesome to see everybody just have a great feedback, be really awesome with it, thankful. Yeah, man, it was great. I walked out with a big bag of stuff too, man. Like everybody was throwing me stuff all day. It was phenomenal. I still have like a bag full of just swag, and I'm like, I don't even know what to do with half of this stuff. It's awesome though. I have it hanging up, so yeah, it's beautiful, man. I love how creative this fan base is, and yeah, it's led me to have some opportunities, and I hope it does all the same for you as well. All you creative ones out there, your creatives of the fence, keep going, man. Keep swinging. It's a beautiful thing. Be positive. Put your work out there. Don't be afraid of it. There's nothing but love coming back to you.
Well, Danny, thank you so much for recording this episode with us. For those of you listening, what you don't know is this is actually the second time Danny and I have had to record this episode because our recording software crashed and we lost everything. So truly a huge thank you for sticking around and helping me get my little creative endeavor out there. And I just want to give you an opportunity to plug anything that you have going on, any of your socials, anything that you want to say.
I'm a local tattooer out of Thornton, Colorado. We own a shop called Ink and Art Collective with my wife and my buddy Jared, who used to be my apprentice. He is a tattooer. My wife does permanent makeup and removal. I do tattoos and commissioned art as well. We are a collective in that everyone is their own boss. I am not taking a cut from anybody. We are just here as a community of artists to put good product out there and put, a positive look on artwork and how we express ourselves and just maintain a brand and a standard. That's the only thing I ever ask of the people on my team. So if you are looking for a tattoo or commission some artwork, please let us know. You can find us on Instagram. It's at Ink Art Colorado, or my personal is at Tattoo Danny Argote. And things to look forward to. I have started a YouTube page where we had our first live stream. I'm going to be posting some videos soon of basically kind of the tattoo process. And I might even delve into sort of the fan art process too, of how I put things together, kind of delve more into the behind the scenes concept of how I put it all together, how I package it, how I print it, how I get it out to the fans and stuff like that. And my goal with all of this down the line is to eventually open a community art center. I would love to have a YMCA for the brain, for the creative arts, for theater, for stand-up, for music, for painting, for digital art, for tattooing, whatever. Sort of have a community ground where we can keep that positive mental attitude and encourage artists to try things out, try a couple different mediums and stuff like that, see what they dig before they commit to a life path in it. I think that's just as useful as the YMCA for sports and physical activities. There needs to be some for creative minds and stuff like that. It could also be an outreach program for mental health as well. I think that's the best way I can give back to my community. And like I said, these full circle moments for me, I can't help but want to create them for others. And I hope you guys are enjoying the journey so far. I appreciate everyone who has given love for the artwork and are supporting me. And I'm having a blast with you guys. Thank you all so much. Big swings, and even if we miss, keep on swinging, y'all. Take care. I love y'all.
Danny, again, thank you so much for joining us. This has been another episode of the Goddardam Gazette. I'm Devin.
I'm Danny.
Over and out, Connecticut. We'll see you next time. I'm Danny.
Oh yeah, and I'm Danny. I'm Danny. I'm Danny. I'm Danny.
Over and out, Connecticut.
Whichever one of those you want. Have fun. Did I lose you, bud? That's all right. You'll come back. I believe in you.